This is a mighty queer place for an egg race.
Welcome to this cold edition of the program. It's cold because we are in Aviemore and it's the end of January. Almost everything has been set up inside this Coil Bridge ice rink. The teams are here too, but there's something missing. Sorry teams, no props. Ever so often we like to set a so-called minimum problem. Gone are the shelves full of useful bits and pieces. We try and give you as little as possible. In fact, for this problem, all the materials you need, you'll find out there. Now for the problem. Required. Bijou winter residence, all on one level, suitable 3 with room for occasional visitor. Must be constructed from local materials and have good thermal insulation and be windproof. Small kitchen, built-in refrigeration. Actually, what I want you to do is to build a snow house. Now go away and do it. Whilst the teams are building snow castles in the air, let me introduce my guest judge, Myrtle Simpson. Now Myrtle has a singular distinction of having been further north than any other woman and having taken part in many lightweight Arctic expeditions. Myrtle, this is a kit they're actually going to have. What do you think of it?
Well, the most important thing is definitely the primus, because you must have heat. And with heat, you can really keep going a long time. But there's no point in having the primus without the matches. And you've had the sense to give them ones that really will work, because condensation is always the trouble in any sort of snow house. But they've got to build the house, of course. And so you've given them this fantastically sophisticated ice knife.
It's really rather like the freezer knife we have at home.
Of course, though, they're not going to meet here in Scotland freezer conditions. I don't think they'll really be able to use that much because the ice just won't be suitable. So they'll need their shovel. And so I think they'll really be digging their snow house rather than constructing it. And sure enough, that's a lightweight shovel. But you don't need half this equipment. You've got far too much stuff. They ought to be able to keep going on just the primus and the knife and the matches.
Well, we are asking them to provide a comfortable house and to give us a cup of tea afterwards and maybe even have some lighting inside.
Well, fair enough. And of course, to get to the house, you've given them these snowshoes. Again, in the right situation, nice dry Arctic snow north of Canada, they'd be ideal. But in Scotland, where we're obviously going to have wet, soggy snow, they're not all that much use.
I think our thinking probably was that they might use the snowshoes as a roofing material or as a structure for the house.
Well, that could be a good idea if they don't know how to really build an igloo. And sure enough, the Greenlanders have always used antlers, reindeer antlers, to keep the roof up in their summer houses, so they could use them for that.
Well, tomorrow construction is going to start out on the mountain. Just about the only thing our 3 trios have in common is that none of them have any experience of working with snow. The green team, for instance, come from Plumpton Village in Sussex. They consist of a flight simulator designer and an engineer from British Gas Research and a banker. So I suppose they could design a mock-up of the snow house, organize the heating, and then arrange a mortgage. The yellow team are also from the south. They're all surveyors working for Southwark Borough Council. Finally, the red team, who like all the rest are identified by their hats. These 3 are a warrant officer, a sergeant, and a civilian, who all work at the Army School of Ammunition in Leamington Spa. So these men are experts at bomb disposal and such like. After setting the problem last night, I asked for the team's reactions. What advantage, for instance, would an army training give to a team?
Not a thing.
What do you think is going to really be the really difficult part of it?
At this stage, deciding what to do.
Well, I hope they've decided now. The surveyors had a basic idea.
proposal is, at the moment, to maybe dig down to form some kind of thermal insulation with the actual depth of snow to our sides and reduce the construction of the top shell.
Good. That sounds very promising. And the Plumpton village team still wanted some clarification.
The specification, as I remember, said accommodation for 3. Can we assume those 3 people will be our good selves?
Oh yes, it's a question. It's protection for you, and occasionally there might be a visitor. In fact, we'll come see you right at the end, and you might invite us in for a cup of tea or something like that. We've suddenly been engulfed in a herd of reindeer. Now, Melta, these have a very special significance to Arctic economy, don't they?
Well, they do, really, because of their skins, which all the hair is hollow, and so they're fantastically insulating. And both the Greenlanders, and particularly the Lapps, of course, use them inside the houses and to sleep on. The conventional thing is you line the tent, the sleeping tent, with reindeer skins, and of course they eat them. And if I was going to spend a night in one of these igloos, I would want about 6 reindeer skins to sleep on and to keep the condensation away.
I must say I'm still surprised. It's the sort of Father Christmas type of reindeer. I was imagining being much bigger and looking me squarely in the eye. What do you feel? What do you feel is the problem with the feed situation in the Scottish Highlands? Do you feel you're getting an adequate diet? Very taciturn.
There's a great problem.
A near perfect blackness.
Hey, I'm going to need another thin one for there.
Yeah, right. Thin one, Seamus.
Yeah, okay.
He'll cut you a thin one.
Here we are at the Army's snow quarry. Tell me, is it hard work?
This is very hard work.
How heavy are the blocks? I mean, they look enormous, but of course there's a lot of air.
They're quite light, but they are awkward to get out of this hole.
How do you decide which size block to cut?
Well, at the moment we're aiming for the biggest, just to build the thing up.
Well, let's go and walk over to your building site.
And they're making a right mess over here, look. Right, here, boys. Give it to Nick. Thank you very much.
Well, your foundations appear to be laid. You appear to build something which is roughly circular.
Yes. Hopefully it'll turn out something like a genuine igloo.
Now, it seems to me that you're using your hands quite a lot just to smooth the outside over. Is there any purpose, or is it merely a question of making it look beautiful?
No, I think it's my partner's desire to do it that way.
It seems to me that it looks like exceedingly hard work, because the number of bricks you'll actually need is large. Isn't there something that you're wasting all the snow which is around here?
Well, no, we started digging in the place where we thought we could cut out the best bricks.
At the moment, your walls don't appear to be leaning in appreciably.
No, we decided we ought to go up at least 24 inches before we started to slope them in the conventional igloo fashion.
And you're reasonably confident that you then have enough height to curve in and actually manage to meet the roof without the thing becoming too tall?
Well, we have other ideas for the centre of the roof.
I think you've got a secret weapon, I see.
That's right.
Well, thank you very much.
Hey, can I come in then?
Certainly, Mercer, of course you can. Can you manage?
Yep.
Jolly good.
Well, this looks to me like a genuine article. What are you trying to do then?
Well, we thought generations of Eskimos can't be wrong, so we're attempting to construct an igloo. The only difficulty we're having really is getting the blocks of a uniform size. So we're attempting at the moment to get to a uniform level all the way round before we really start concentrating on tumbling it in towards the centre.
Do you think it's going to be big enough?
we think it have to be big enough, but of course we think we're going to finish it so quickly, we're going to build another one, you see.
Now these blocks then, what sort of size are you using?
Well, we started with a baseline of about 2 foot by 1 foot by 1 foot. That's on the inside. That would give us a 10-foot diameter circle, or 10-foot diameter in both directions. Then we felt as we went up we'd have to make them smaller to allow for the fact that they would slide in during construction. It would be sound afterwards, but we've got the problem of constructing it. Also, we think that a fairly large block is going to be quicker to build, and this is how it's going.
Well, certainly you get plenty of insulation with all these wet, soggy snow blocks. You know, the Greenlanders would have had really dry snow, which might have changed their plan a bit, wouldn't it?
Probably. They're probably fitter than us.
And what are you doing down there?
I'm digging in the doorway here. This is a draft passage. What we shall do is we'll roof this over when we've completed it and got inside. We're also going to dig out a bit more in there because, as you said earlier, it's not really quite big enough. It's not as big as we envisaged, and we thought we'd make seating and everything in there as well out of the bits that we cut out as we go down.
So you're really aiming for a genuine Eskimo entrance and trapping the warm air?
We're going to try, yes. Hopefully. It's hard work though.
Well, I think this is a super igloo and I'm looking forward to having my lunch here. So good luck then.
Thank you. Thanks.
Our surveyors appear to be using a technique which is halfway between dry stone walling and building a sandcastle at the seaside. Liz, come out of your... I can see no vestige at the moment of forming a roof. How are you going to do that?
Well, it's not a conventional igloo as such. We're actually planning to use the snowshoes as a temporary structure as formwork, and then putting the snow over the top of it.
At present you're almost at head height, so how tall is your building actually going to be?
Not much taller. If we possibly can, we're going to try and get it so we can stand up in it.
And I heard some rumours that you're planning a 2-room mansion. Is this so?
Yeah, well, 1 room for me and 1 for them.
Oh, I see. That's a delicate moral problem which you're trying to...
Yeah. Well, would you fancy sleeping with them?
Frankly, no, I suppose. Thank you. Of course, nowadays, Eskimos use tents when they travel, but when Robert Flaherty filmed Nanook of the North over 65 years ago, they still built igloos. So we are watching the end of an era. Nanook's knife is walrus ivory, and instead of sharpening it, he licks it to build up a good cutting edge of frozen saliva. He even fits a window using a block of ice. Notice how he shapes a hole to stop the ice falling all the way in. Then he tops it off with a reflector to catch the sun's rays. The whole construction, we are told, took Nanook just 1 hour. We've just seen an example of a very efficient domestic economy which has taken thousands of years to develop. Now I have with me here someone called Martin Baker, who works for the British Antarctic Survey, and he's going to tell me how it's done now. Now Martin, let's start off with your clothing.
Well, we found out over the years that the best technique is layers and layers of clothing. And for instance, at the moment I'm wearing a set of thermal underwear, building up through layers of jumpers and heavy-duty trousers to my outer garments.
No fur on you, not a hair of fur visible.
No, in fact this stuff is very tightly woven, 100% cotton, completely windproof, and traps the air next to my body and will keep me warm down to very low temperatures.
Let's look at your method of transportation.
Well, again, we use something which hasn't changed since the original design. It's called a Nansen sledge, a 12-foot Nansen sledge. It's made of ash, and the interesting thing is that it isn't bolted together or screwed together in any fashion. As you can see, perhaps here, it's lashed in with leather thonging, and in some places even with twine. And that's so that the sledge remains flexible when it's being towed over difficult snow and ice conditions, and the sledge won't break.
The facing underneath the runner, is this actually the bare wood or is there a metal facing on it?
No, it's actually faced by tufnel, which is a very smooth lining material.
Which is rather a non-Nanook type of
That's
thing.
right.
But it's interesting to comment here that the design of the sled, in spite of all the modern materials, has really changed very little since Nansen's day, and presumably Nansen took his design from the age-old Eskimo designs.
That's right, and it's because it's been so successful for the conditions, both at the North Pole and at the South Pole.
Well, our teams have nearly finished now. Let's look how they're getting on.
Hello.
It's like this, isn't it? It's a snowball job.
Myrtle?
Hi. Oh, take my tea.
The kind of tent we've got here is the latest British Antarctic Survey tent. Now, when you straighten it out, Myrtle, am I right in thinking that you actually called one of these home for quite a long time?
Oh, absolutely. And home can be a tent, particularly one like this, you know, two skins. One traps the warm air in a sort of layer, so you're living inside a sort of thermos flask. Absolutely fantastic. And the great thing is you can be the same after sort of 3 months living in one as the first night.
How long have you actually lived inside one of these?
Well, when we crossed Greenland, we lived in one for 32 days, but I have lived in one for longer than that on other journeys.
How many of you at a time?
4. Well, our whole family, Mum, Dad and the kids. But it's basically, of course, a two-man tent.
Shall we look at the internal furnishings and conveniences?
Well, the main thing is, of course, the primus. You have to have warmth, and there's nothing like a good old-fashioned paraffin-running primus. Then you need a really good sleeping bag. And again, the Eskimos would have, of course, a reindeer skin. The BSF boys have got sheepskin to sleep on. And really, there's just nothing more warm and cozy than a tent. Who wants double glazing and all the rest of it, you know, when you can have a tent like this?
Shall we go and have a look at the tent next door?
Well, this, on the other hand, is specially made for high altitude. It's the McInnes Everest Summit box. It's supposed to be for about 2 people.
Let's have a look. Hello, Martin.
Yes, it is big enough for 2, even my size.
Good for you.
Its strong points is that it's very good in high winds, which at high altitude is something that you've got to be worried about.
Even 100 miles?
Yes, 100 knots, these winds.
And now for another tent. It's very special. It's a prototype which has never been tested before. Have a look inside. But special features. Very difficult to make a dignified entrance into here. Right, Martin, you come in too.
There we go.
I'll point out the desirable features.
Well, unlike the other tents we've looked at, the main structure of this tent is provided through these inflatable pneumatic tubes. Now that would lead to a problem. In cold weather, of course, the air would contract and the tent would go a bit soft and be in danger of collapse. But very cleverly, they've supplied this compensating tube here. And as the air gets cold, this shock cord wrapped around this tube also contracts.
So it's a form of elastic reservoir.
That's right. And it forces the air into these tubes and keeps the tent as rigid as possible.
It's certainly astonishingly stiff if I push against it, and it's even got double windows, which I think is a nice...
Well, it's so encouraging, this tent, that it looks like it will be used as a base tent for a base camp on Everest in the near future.
Are you ready for this?
I think I'm ready for this, look. Put that up there.
Don't muck it up, mate. Okay, Mark, what's the thickness in the middle now?
Mine's that way.
Yeah, put your hand up. What's the thickness in the middle now? Yeah, what's the depth there?
Well, 9 inches.
About a foot. Okay, fine, thanks. We really are down to grapefruit segments now, aren't we? Yeah. Well, this needn't look terribly clever. But it's there.
Here we now are at our first igloo, the army one. I'm going to precipitate myself inside it.
Good afternoon, Frank. How are you?
Good afternoon.
Would you care for a roll from our fridge?
Well, let's word to Mercer first, be polite and offer it to the lady.
Something to eat, perhaps, or a drink?
Oh, I'd love some tea. You've got some tea on the
No, we
brew?
haven't actually started brewing yet. We decided we'd save that until just before bed.
Oh, it's a real drink, a real drink. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, but before I think that eats, let's get on with some business, I would have said. Let's explain the marking system. There's a total maximum of 100 marks. 40 of these are going to be awarded by Myrtle on the overall habitability of the igloo. 40 are going to be awarded by me for the architectural soundness of the structure. Then Myrtle and I, rather capriciously, can award another 20 for the fiddly bits, decoration, style of entertainment, quality of the tea, and so on. So Myrtle, how would you judge this army igloo for habitability?
Well, I think it's, you know, I think it's built very, very systematically. I saw the army taking very precision blocks and all the rest of it. My only worry is that they were very thin. And how on earth are they going to keep warm when the wind starts howling through here?
Oh, well, that's easily solved.
Prevailing wind, in fact, is in the opposite direction, you see.
But the warm air will fall straight out.
Yeah.
You know, there's a warm seat. See, an Eskimo would always have his door lower than the floor we're actually sitting on. So marks, then, we're talking about marks.
For habitability, that's
Habitability,
out
what
of
do you
40.
think? About
Well, it's your-
32. I would say about 32.
All right. Now, for the architectural structure, which is, as you say, perhaps it's a bit thin. It's a veritable cathedral of an igloo. I think it's bigger than any of the other igloo we're going to see. As you say, it was very systematically built. So I think I'll award 30 in terms of the structure. So that's a total of 62 we have so far. And now, Myrtle, you and I have another 20 to award for
Would
the
you like
standard.
another drink, Heinz?
For the standard of decoration, any other bits we particularly like. If I can start the bidding, so you can disagree with me, Myrtle, I'd say we might perhaps award 12.
11. Give me 11 because I know that the soup's going to be okay.
All right, so the army has scored a total of 73. Well done. They appear to be an unfriendly lot. Don't want to
Do not disturb.
Well, we're now at the residence of the surveyors. Now, Myrtle, what do we think of the outside?
Well, I think typical surveyors, they've covered over all their actual building materials, so you can't really see what it's made of. But it looks pretty solid, I suppose, and I do like the traditional dome shape, which, let's hope, has trapped the warm air inside this time.
And I hope they've obtained planning permission for the extension which they built here.
Yeah, I like the idea of the little extra room because it'll hold the cold air separate from the warm.
Well, shall we go in?
Okay. Well, this looks a bit of all right.
Here comes Heinz.
Well, that was a convenient entrance. Where's this room for me to sit?
Yeah, if you can sit there.
Right, let me sit next to you, Liz.
Okay.
Before we start the serious business, let me ask you, whose T-shirt do I see fluttering out there?
Mine.
Well, I think it deserves an extra mark in due course for devotion to duty.
Thank you.
Now, let's get on with the marking. Myrtle, how do you feel about the general habitability?
Well, I like the way in because I think that's sensible, but there are still no seats. I want to sit knowing that this is where I'm going to sleep, higher up with my feet dangling below in the cold sink. And there isn't that there, and I really don't know how the four of us are going to spend the night. I like the idea, though, of using the snowshoes, although what happens when you want to use them? But sure enough, it's compensated for a bit of slightly jerry-buildering. Marks? 30?
All right, so we score 30 on that basis. Now, as far as the architecture is concerned, and I think that there's a few things we ought to know. First, the other team built there appreciably quicker than anybody else. In fact, they probably took an hour less than the surveyor's team. It's a good deal smaller than the previous house we visited, but it has an anteroom. It uses the snowshoes as part of the structural component. So I think overall, I would award it 28 in terms of the architecture. So that gives us a mark of 58 so far, isn't it? 30 you've
yes.
awarded, 58. Now we have another possible 20 for the twiddly bits. This is now.
Well,
I think
there are some nice twiddly bits. I like the decorations. I like the little shelves to put things on. So that's
the excellent decoration too.
10.
10. So, all right, I compromise with you on 10. So the surveyors score a total of 68. Well done.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, Myrtle, for the Plumpton Village Igloo. How do you feel about it?
Oh, I like this one. I like the doorway. No polar bear can get in there, you see, nor can the prevailing wind. Window box, see that?
A nice domestic touch, yes.
And do you think they've paid their subs?
Well, I don't actually know whether they've got a set, but I'm going to go inside to have a look. Hello, gentlemen.
Hello, come in.
Hello. Unconventional entry and head first. I don't even know whether a gentleman takes his hat off when entering an igloo.
Oh, this is just great.
Particularly in the presence of a lady.
This really is great. This is what I call an igloo. Tremendous.
It's certainly nice and warm
Sleeping shelf, put our feet lower with the heat sink. Absolutely first class.
I can smell something rather delicious. I would actually eat it now, but what are you cooking for us?
We have some soup, reconstituted soup.
Smells like seal stew.
That's probably what the BBC gave us. We can offer you some if you like.
Yeah, I'd love some.
Now, Myrtle, let's get down to the serious business of marking. Remember, you've got up to 40 marks for internal habitability.
Well, I think this really is great. There's a sleeping shelf, place to sit, place to put things. I like the proper shape of it so that even if it does start to thaw, it won't come down all round us like the one with the metal in the ceiling is the last one.
And you think it's large enough for 3 people to be able to sleep in here?
I think an Eskimo family would easily fit into this and, you know, we'll all snuggle up round and about. I would give it 38.
38 out of 40, isn't it?
38 out of 40, it's absolutely super.
Now, I've got another potential 40 marks for habitability, or for the architecture construction. I must say I rather liked your entrance, even though it stressed me a little, slip discs and things of this kind. So I think that my architecture mark, particularly, it's relatively spacious, it's without being uncozy. I would award it, say, 34, which gives us a score so far of 72. And we've got another up to 20 for the twiddly bits, like the television areas and things of that kind outside.
Where's the set? I couldn't quite... but I do like the twiddly bits. I can't actually see the television set, but...
So how many would you give them for the twiddly bits? 16?
15.
15. So 72 and 15 gives them the magnificent total of 87. Well done.
Well done.
And this brings us to the end of the great Igloo race. Thank you very much for all the teams for taking part. Thank you very much, Myrtle, for being such a marvelous judge. And my congratulations to the winning team who scored 87 marks from Plumpton Village. Join us again next week for another edition of the Great Egg Race.
Little Eskimos nearly froze in an igloo. Said the little boy to the girl in the igloo, we can build and coo, we can moo in the igloo. Come on, don't be that way. But she wouldn't moo, couldn't coo in the igloo. She was very cruel, it was cool in the igloo. Shut the window please or we'll freeze in the igloo, was all that she would say. Aqua, wacko, goo, no igloo, what to do, no igloo. What are they gonna do without an igloo?